So this is the fabric we're going to be using. Some people call it kente cloth, some people call it ankara. Our pattern says on the fold, but remember we're doing ours just as is, not on the fold. If you are using a different lining fabric, then you would cut 2 of the self fabric, which is the fabric that is seam, and then 2 on the lining fabric. But since I'm using this as my self fabric and as my lining fabric, I'm going to cut 4, 2 this way and 2 this way. So I'm going to put my right here. We're going to move it down a little bit so we're not wasting any fabric. As far down to the bottom as you can get. And since in the center we're going to put this thing, we don't need to add seam allowance. Whatever side of the pattern your weight is covering, make sure you always move it, and so that when you take your pattern off, it's not a missing side. And when you use your chalk to draw on the inner side, cut on the inner side of the chalk. You see the chalk here with the rest of the pattern, cut on this side of it, which is the inner part, because that is the part where the pattern ended. Can't see me drawing all the way down to 70 or 50, all the way down to 70 inches, but yeah, do that, and then take your marker and put it, and then draw another parallel line 1 inch away. Remember, I'm using the Sharpie on the parts that are yellow, because my marker is yellow. Alright, so now I'm going to use a straight stitch to sew my bust pieces. If you can see here, you would sew yourself and your lining face to face and then sew along the top 3/8 of an inch or whatever you put as your seam allowance, and then at the bottom 3/8 of an inch. And we're going to do that on both sides. Make sure you back stitch and then carry on. Walk it right here to make sure that I can continue with the 3/8 of an inch for that curved piece or that angled piece. Back stitch again. Do the bottom, same thing, 3/8 of an inch, back stitch, then walk it when you get here. Turn it and see if it's ready. Boom, yep. You can walk it to the end since it's such a short piece. And if you don't know what I mean when I say walk, I mean turn the dial on the side to stitch instead of stepping on the pedal, and then back stitch. So we'll do the same thing to the other side of the bust. 3/8 seam allowance, back stitch. Walk it, turn, back stitch. Do the same thing at the bottom. Oops. Alright, then it's time to sew our strap. So unlike the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance that I put on the bust pieces, on the strap I put a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So we're gonna put this in here and sew 1/2 inch. Oh, and also what I'm going to do is here from each side I'm going to start sewing 1/2 inch down, so that we have some room when we're done, when we flip it, to flip it inside. So let me mark 1/2 inch on each side so I know where to stop. Just make sure you're marking the other side on the same side as the first one so you can see it. Okay. So when you put it in, just put it right on that 1/2 inch down line, and don't forget this one is with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And as I forgot to mention when we drafted the strap on the fabric, instead of drafting 1 inch for the strap, draft 2 inches for the strap, so that when you fold it face to face and sew it with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, when you flip it and press it, the strap measurement is actually 1 inch. Because if you cut it at 1 inch and then you sew it at 1/2 inch seam allowance, then your strap is only gonna be what, 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch? No, it's gonna be, yeah. But if you cut it at 2 inches and sew it with 1/2 inch seam allowance, then it will be the 1 inch strap that you're looking for. Don't forget, we're stopping at the 1/2 inch mark on this side, and then back stitch. So you stick it in, you open up the mouth and then you put it in there and blow all the way to the other side. Make sure the teeth are open. Oops. Make sure the teeth are open. And then hook it on the fabric and start to pull, because what it's going to do is flip it. You might have to help it by like using your fingers. To guide it in there, because when the seam allowance is the same as what it's trying to go into, it can be difficult. So I ended up going back in with my overlock machine and cutting an extra 1/4 inch off of the seam allowance so it could fit easier in there. And just be careful, because sometimes this thing can come off. But yeah, I took a 1/4 inch off to make it easier to pull through, and now it's pulling through. So just pull it all the way until the top from one side comes out on the other side. And it might slip off, and you have to keep on going and hooking it back on, which is, it also will help too if you go to the end and pull so it doesn't get like stuck. See? Because sometimes it can bunch up and not want to pull through. So if you just go to the other end and pull the fabric that needs to flip inside up while you're pulling the other side, while you're still pulling the handle on the other side, to just make it easier. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying. So I got the other end out over here. So now just keep on pulling until you can pull it all the way through. See what I mean? You're guiding it through. Okay, so I top stitched the top and the bottom bust pieces, which is when you stitch 1/8 of an inch from the edge to keep the fabric better in place. Then I also folded the sides of the bust over 3/4 of an inch, and now I'm going to sew them for the strap casing at 1/2 an inch with the straight stitch. forget to backstitch. Now we're gonna sew the side of the other side of the bust at 1/2 inch. Okay, so I realize here that my ring that I bought to go in the center of the shirt or the top does not open. So if you bought a ring that doesn't open, you can use some fabric glue. The one by Dritz might be a good one, and just put the fabric all the way in there and then fold it at the 3/4 of an inch mark, and then just put the fabric glue there. Or we can see if we can fit it under the sewing machine. We cannot. So what I'm gonna do is sew the center of the center piece, the center front pieces of the top at 1/2 inch, and then figure out a way to open this. Maybe. So like I said, you can put the fabric all the way in there and then just use fabric glue to close it, or you can hand sew it, or you can sew it on the machine and then find a way to open your ring, or just buy a ring that does open.